Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Beth, and I just finished reading The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. It was published in 1963 and is about 250 pages long. What can I say about this book other than it deserves to be hailed as a contemporary classic? This book, you should pick up yourself a copy now. And let me tell you why. It definitely, I think, is relatable to just about everyone. Even though the main character, Esther, is a scholarship student who gets all A's, I think that, especially even if you're on the older side or on the younger side, you can really relate to this confusion that is felt by the youth. And it's mostly an introspective book, not very plot-based. So if you're looking for an action thriller, this is maybe not the time to pick up this book. But I think that it is highly relatable for almost anybody. And it's a very low bar to clear verbally. Like, the vernacular isn't too complex. It's definitely not what I would place in like the literary fiction category. I think that it honestly also ages extremely well. Even though there's certain themes that fit better towards the 1960s era, I think that almost anyone can glean anything from this, even though there's not a huge, I would say, technical role throughout this book. There's very few times, I would say, that the time period of this book comes into play, such as the fact that there is a tuberculosis sanitarium that plays a slight role, which obviously we do not have today. And, you know, the medicine practices are obviously a little bit different. We're no longer really doing lobotomies or shock therapy. Thank goodness. And also there's a huge fear about state hospitals versus private hospitals, which is still, I think, I would say important during this day and age, but maybe not as much so because there's definitely less abuse than there was back in the day. But, however, I think that this book really shows both sides of the, I would say, psychoanalytical beliefs. Like, you do have times when you think that, oh, you know, therapy does nothing and it is terrible for all of its patients and it'll only, you know, create you into a zombie. But then there's also times when, honestly, I think that the therapy style in this book is very laid back and allows mostly time to do most of the healing. And so really you can glean whatever you want from the treatment in this book. If you are on one side or the other, you can kind of judge for yourself. But I do think that the main running line in this novel is, how do you go about choosing your future? Because even though I wouldn't say our futures are written by ourselves, because they are in a way, but fate does play a role, you have a main character who has all these opportunities in front of her and watches them grow sour one by one, and isn't exactly sure what to make of her life, especially as she feels time is ticking out, but she's only 19 years old. And I think we all feel that way despite our age, even though we learn of people in their 70s or 80s or 90s who finally reach their life goals then. We often forget those stories and only think of the youth that kind of, I would say, achieve their greatness early. And I think that we can all kind of relate to a character. Even though she's straight A student, scholarship, she doesn't feel very bright because, in fact, you're not. When all you can do is schoolwork, but you don't exactly have life experiences. Because she tries writing at a certain point of the book and finds that she has nothing to write about because she hasn't experienced the world. She also finds that because she's an honors English major as opposed to regular English major, she doesn't know basics or Beowulf. She doesn't know these literary classics, but she has like this very specific facet of study that she knows quite well. But how will that really help her in the everyday world? But she doesn't exactly wish to go about arming herself with this general knowledge because she doesn't feel invigorated in that kind of, I would say, facet. But she's, I think, very much what a lot of us are when we're younger. And maybe even currently going through that phase, or sometimes come back to these thoughts. And a lot of times you don't feel like you have a way out. And I think that this book shows that even if you are in such a dark mindset, there is reprieve. Even if you don't feel like it's getting better, because the main character kind of feels the same and doesn't know what to do with herself. But slowly you kind of come to this, equilibrium state where you feel human again, but you also keep those, I would say, negative emotions and negative feelings inside of you. So I think that even though it's not plot heavy, the introspection in this book is extremely insightful into the human psyche. Maybe we all haven't experienced it, but we can all relate to the themes. So I would say if you're a female, maybe you might relate a little more, because there is a streak of what it means to be pure in this book and about a woman's role during this time period, which relates more to this time period as opposed to how it is now, and this, I would say, huge movement of women empowerment. But this shows back during that time how a woman could feel trapped by society's expectations of her, and what becoming bonded to a man and becoming married and becoming a subservient character in someone else's story will make you feel like, and how this character never wants to be married because she's so terrified of that. And she's not sure how to feel about purity and virginity, and feels that almost more of a weight as opposed to just her natural state of being. So all I gotta say is I would highly recommend this book. I think that it's an easy barrier for anyone to cross. Maybe not a fun read, but a really invigorating read that gives you a really great outlook onto life. I hope you enjoyed my review and have a good one.